Hello viewer, I am the Omni Blade, and since the last time I reacted to IGN, a lot of people liked it and said, yeah, keep going, I'm gonna do that today, where we are reacting to the Fire Emblem Fates Birthright review. My original idea was to do, like, all of the Fates things at once, but I did a take, I was like, this is gonna be another 20-minute one, isn't it? And so, it's just how I am, people. I'm sorry, I can't change the fact that I like to ramble on about things and can go on for hours and hours on end. But that's just how it be. The reason I'm doing the Birthright one first is because it is the one that gets more flack, but mostly because the views on this one are significantly higher than the Conquest one for whatever reason. And I'm pretty sure there's an obvious reason as to why, and it's more casuals would be drawn to this version. I hate saying casual in a negative tone. Like in this case, it's like more casual gamers would be more drawn to Birthright, because Conquest is like the gritty, hardcore one. Some people that have like never been into Fire Emblem that were introduced to this game were like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. So they do Birthright instead, which makes sense. But yeah, this video has like 70,000 more views than the Conquest one, which is very interesting. The ratio is more or less similar. This one has 4K more likes, I think, because the other one didn't even break 3K. So yeah, it's interesting. Also, not as much hate on this video, which is weird. I'm not saying, like, go dislike bomb this video. That'd be stupid as fuck, because there's no point. The video is almost 3 years old at this point, which is wild to think Fates came out almost 3 years ago. But yeah, let's just get right into it. It's gonna be a long one, people. For 20 minutes you'll probably see, because that's just how I am. And this is a 5-minute video this time. So realistically, this should be closer to a 30-minute video, but nah. And the reason I take a while is because I don't like to talk over this stuff. A lot of people do, but I want to have you guys hear it all. And I'm pretty sure I hit my desk and like rolled around my chair so much that you guys hear it. And I apologize for that. I'm going to try to stop doing that now. So 2 minutes into the video, we'll actually get into the damn review. And I have some stuff to say now that I've like seen it through, done a dry take, and now have my thoughts I can formulate on it. Even early on, I have stuff to say.
I realized how amazing Fire Emblem Fates Birthright is during a particularly nerve-wracking moment. My samurai Ryoma had been cut off from the rest of my war party and was being challenged by a much stronger paladin.
Now,
things looked bad, but by making smart use of the terrain and his equipment, I turned the odds in my favor.
So we're like not even 30 seconds in and we've already had a lot to take. Also, I love how I said I don't want to talk over stuff, and I immediately talk over it, which was a bit of an accident, I'm sorry. But, okay. What she says here.
Things looked bad, but by making smart use of the terrain and his equipment...
By making smart use of the terrain and the equipment. And this is how you know right out of the way this is some bullshit. Because even though I haven't touched the game in like a year, off the top of my head, I can remember that in Chapter 6 of Birthright, Ryoma's equipment is literally the Raijinto and maybe a concoction. I don't know if he has that in the Birthright version. I don't remember. Probably does, just to make it easier. Because that is what Birthright is, the easier version. But, yeah, so how did you make proper use of your equipment? What you're supposed to do, yes, is, like, take a few hits from Xander, and then you attack him in player phase to activate the Duelist Blow, which will give you the 30 Avoid, but that has nothing to do with your equipment. That's your skills, which you have inherently, because Ryoma has that at that point given his class. So, the whole equipment thing makes no fucking sense, because all you have is Raijinto. So just... Also, the terrain. You are literally on an island that all the terrain has the same effect. I don't think there are any Avoid tiles in that little patch where Xander and Ryoma fight, and even if there were, it wouldn't change that much just because Xander can still chase you down, and I don't even think you have to kill Xander in this path to beat the thing. I don't remember what the objective is in Birthright, but you also have so many more units to take on Leo, Camilla, and Elise, because you have Rinka as well, you have Kaze as well, and then you have Azura, so you have a dancer in that chapter too. It's stupid. I think yeah, you do get all the royals, I'm pretty sure. At least Takumi, because he just shows up and fucks up Leo. So, yeah, terrain, combat, terrain and equipment, that's bullshit right off the bat. We're off to a fantastic start here, people. We are off to a fantastic start. Where IGN just spitting some lies into our face. I'm already 5 minutes in, holy shit.
I turned the odds in my favor. It's these jump for joy, shake with relief moments that makes Birthright such a fantastic experience. And its more welcoming difficulty relative to its counterpart Conquest...
Okay, this is just a question I have in general. Does anyone ever use these first-person cameras? Because I've never used them. They just look so weird. I don't know, just let me know.
Makes it a great entry point for the series.
Oh, okay. One thing I will say, I do think Birthright is a fantastic starting point if you have a friend that you want to get into the series. Because not everyone's first Fire Emblem is going to be FE7 or Tellius. Especially Tellius, because it's impossible to get hands on that legally nowadays because of how damn expensive it is. But yeah, I think FE7 and Awakening, of course, are the natural entry points. I would say Awakening first. Because I started with Awakening, and that might explain a lot for many of you watching. Be like, oh, that's why his opinions are shit. But, like, I think it's a good starting point. I don't even like playing Awakening that much nowadays, though, just because it's so different from other Fire Emblem games. And I'm so used to the other ones now that it just, when I go back to Awakening, I'm just like, I don't vibe with this anymore. I still love the game for what it did, getting me to the series that I love, but it's a good starting point. Birthright, if you want to go with, like, the mix between Awakening and FE7 and give them that crossbreed, I think is a fine starting point. Mostly because the story is generic enough to where it can be consumed, and it doesn't do any of the wonky bullshit that Conquest tries to do, or something like that. So I don't think it's an awful starting point just for the gameplay alone. The story leaves something to be desired, but we'll get to that.
This clever turn-based tactical RPG constantly rewards you for smart decisions, and every move, every piece of equipment, and every relationship you foster serves a purpose. Combine that with robust customization and a gut-wrenching story, and you have something that achieves greatness. Birthright's heart-rending 30-hour story takes place in the peaceful nation of Hoshido.
First off, I always love these little CG cutscenes and fades. This art is fucking gorgeous, no matter how you try to put it. Just look at the cherry blossoms. You got all the houses. You see the little lantern strings tied up. This art looks gorgeous. I wish we saw more of this Hoshido in the actual game. Just in the early parts, you get to appreciate the beauty, and you give you more of a reason to want to protect Hoshido. Why is my camera on my phone? Weird. Sorry. But just, yeah, like, just looking at this, like, this is what I expect from Birthright. You do get this in Conquest in that one map with Hinoka, but unfortunately the map is shit. So that kind of kills it, but just all of this is gorgeous. I wish we had more of this, because you give me more of this. You need to show more of the peace in Hoshido. You see, like, 2 chapters of it. No, you see, like, 5 minutes of it, and you're like, okay, you want to protect. It's like, yeah, cool, but show me more. Show me more of the good stuff. Even, I don't know how much of this gets wiped in the destruction, but there's still got to be part of it left. You can see the aftermath. It's like, what's here's left is worth protecting. That would give me so much more motivation, aside from just, I must fight with my Birthright family, which, like, did anyone ever think it was going to be your Birthright family? Because, like, from the beginning, I was like, oh, the whole plot twist is, like, Birthright is not actually your birth family. That's totally going to be it, because, first off, why are you a dragon and they aren't? And second, the whole incest thing would just be like, even though they kind of keep it in with Azura, which I'm just like, well, it is still whatever, it's more incest than Conquest in all honesty, but actually you don't even see them that much growing up. Whatever, I knew it wasn't going to be blood, because there's no way Nintendo of America would release a game and be like, oh, hell no, are we having you fuck your blood siblings in this game? Because we all knew you could romance them, so it'd be just, that'd be horrible PR. But somehow they avoided that disaster. And yeah, the story. Gosh, I'm just going on about how I wanted a better Birthright story and how you could do it. But the story in Birthright is so generic. Mostly because you have generic protagonist edgelord Corrin, and for whatever reason, he becomes the edgiest mother in this game. And I don't know why, because, like, you could just go through and see all the times Corrin's about to fight someone, he's just like, nah! Or he does this little spin in game, the model will just have him spin his sword like he's about to start fighting, you'd be like, now I'm ready! And it's just like, okay, buddy. He does that against Iago a few times, he does it against Garen, And I don't know if he does it against Zola in the start, but whatever. Also, Zola was the stupidest fucking thing in that game. Gosh. Yeah, the non-playable character was clearly not gonna sell you out or something. It's just like, gosh, you're an idiot, game. You're so stupid. Yeah, so just so generic. None of the characters are even that great, too, and we'll get to that in this. I'm only a minute in, but there is more to talk about later on, so I'll get to it then.
Where the army is trying to halt the advancement of the Nor kingdom. As the son or daughter of the king of Nor, you're forced to take up arms against your own family in order to win peace. It's an emotional and engaging journey, elevated by a fantastic score.
An emotional and engaging journey. I have seen generic shonen written better than this. Just like, it's so edgy anime trash. It's not a good story. Also, I love this art right here. This, and when they do it for Birthright, the Birthright characters too, it's so gorgeous. Why? Give me more of this stuff in the game and I'll be down with it. The score, I do like the soundtrack in this game. I love the soundtrack, especially since you hear Condemnation and Birthright, so it gets that plus, because you just hear the you just hear the bagpipes going in. I'm just like, oh shit, they made bagpipes epic.
And beautiful art direction full of blossom-swept pagodas and lush green plains.
I will also say, I do love the art style in this game, but that's just like, Nintendo games always have that quality art direction no matter what. I still think Xenoblade Chronicles, which came out on the Wii, a graphically inferior system, still looks gorgeous because of the art direction they did with it, and I love it. So, I'll always love how this game looks, even if the models can be bleh at times, but when they do the cinematics and the CG stuff like this, it's gorgeous. So pretty. Aha ha 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 ha!
The story's great, but
the story's great!
Battle over Hoshido is even better. Combat can get pretty difficult.
Okay, this is the part, because Birthright is for a more casual experience. It's not as hard. It is designed that way. So why are you saying combat can get pretty difficult in this game? Because that's just not true. Early on, you have Korin carrying you, then Oboro shows up who is drunk as all hell, and then she carries you until Ryoma shows up and he literally breaks the game in half. But we'll get to him. We'll get to him. Don't worry.
Especially if you opt to turn on permadeath.
Especially if you opt to turn on permadeath. This means we got a fucking casual playing mode. Wow, that is I have not fucked something up in my head that bad in a while. We have a fucking casual playing her type of mode right here, people. I'm not saying there's no merit in playing casual mode. I don't know, I never play casual mode personally, just because something in my head is always just like, no, don't let unit die. Must play perfectly every time. Because I'm pretty sure a lot of you understand where I'm coming from with this. But there's no shame in playing casual mode at all. Especially if you want to do it just to like see some support you never saw before. I kind of wish older games had a casual mode for stuff like that. Like going through Hector mode casual mode kind of defeats the purpose. But you get what I mean. I think casual mode is a great addition. But just at a certain time, if you're saying things are difficult when you're playing casual mode, are you really the right person to determine when something's difficult in this series?
So being able to revisit campaigns is a great way to toughen up your troops. While on the battlefield
is a great way to toughen up your troops. Let me just, okay, great, yeah, you kill this guy, you see Jacob get a whopping 6 experience point. 6 experience points! Yeah! Such a great way to toughen up your troops. Just, come on, IGN. At what point do you start looking at this and start saying, fuck, our footage doesn't match what we're saying?
Toughen up your troops. While on the battlefield, you can give yourself an advantage by changing map tiles under an enemy's feet, swapping out safe spaces to things like hindering sand or a damaging spiky bamboo trap. There's also a color-coded weapon schematic that makes it easy to understand the rock, paper, scissors combat mechanic, and an intuitive user interface where you can view ally and enemy stats hassle-free.
I will say I love the UI in this game. This game has some of the cleanest UI, just because they took what worked in Awakening and then just spruced it up and made it so much more fun. They polished it. Because it was kind of blocky in Awakening, but here it's nice and rounded. Everything looks very organized. You have so much detail in everything. I love it. I love how the UI is in this game. Some of the best in the Fire Emblem series, in my opinion.
That doesn't mean combat is a walk in the park.
The irony here is fucking incredible. That doesn't mean combat is a walk in the park. First off, I explained why it is. But you have literally the most broken unit in all of Fates. I almost said Fire Emblem, but no, Seth exists. So does Har. But, yeah, he's more broken than Camilla only because Camilla doesn't have a personal weapon that is 1-2 range with no penalty and has fucking 15 base might and powers up your other weapons if you just have it on you, which there's no reason not to. Just literally 1-2 range on a weapon class that doesn't normally have it, and since the 1-2 range options in Birthright are dick, as the battering clubs just suck, and the Kodachi'S are terrible too, because Ryoma's the only sword unit aside from Korin you'd need, as Hinata's not a good unit, and Hana's not bad, she's just Ryoma minus the bulk. She can be just as fast and strong as him, but in terms of bulk, she doesn't really have it. But, yeah, no, just combat's not easy. Shows the most broken unit in the game. Just great fucking work, IGN. I know this is early on in the chapters, but just even still.
Like in other Fire Emblems, you still have to juggle a number of combat variables, like the type of weapons enemies carry,
True.
what their stat buffs and attack percentages are,
You have to play a game, yes.
whether they're paired up, and their proximity to your troops. It's a lot to manage, but the simple interface and the balance between combat variables ties it all together to create a seamless experience so immersive, I often lost track of time while carving a path to victory.
Bullshit, you're like, oh fuck, I missed my date or whatever after doing this crap. Because you're like, 30 hours, that's not a lot of time in all honesty. I spent way more in Congo. I'm pretty sure I spent like 50 with how much I had to reset, but still. Just... And she said all these things where it's just, yeah, you have to manage enemy placement and percentages and all that stuff, and it's just so good. I'm like, yes, this is a Fire Emblem game, very much so. Just, it's Fire Emblem! Granted, for newcomers, you wouldn't know that, but she's kind of trying to take the angle like this is informative knowledge she's imparting, which it's not. Like, you could figure this out by reading the back of the box. And it'd be more interesting there, too. Where did I take that from? Where did I hear that? Oh, yeah, Donkey said that when we talked about Game Critics. I was like, that sounds familiar. Just like, yeah, the back of the box explains all this better.
The only issue I have is the lack of diversity in mission objectives. Your goal almost always comes down to either routing the enemy or defeating the boss.
That's a valid complaint, because when Birthright does something different that one time in the Opera House where your objective is not to kill Garen, it's actually a very good level. I did in my top 10 Fates chapters, and that was the only Birthright one on there because it was the only one that was actually worth a damn, because you can easily do it. You can just take Hinoka, fly Korin out of there, and get out in like 2 turns, and it's easy. You can do that no problem. The reason why you don't do that, though, is because there's a chest by Garen, where I think it has a Draco Shield, which is one of the best stat-boosting items in the game, because it's defense. Who doesn't want more defense? And so, you gotta try and get that thing. Maybe there's a second chest with money as well, but I remember there being a Draco Shield specifically for some reason. I might be wrong on that, though. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But there's some objectives for you to get stuff, and it's this risk-reward scenario, where it's like, I can push towards Garen and fight a crap ton of enemies, or I could just get out of there and not have to deal with Xander, who shows up and is like a real threat in that chapter. He will fuck up your units if you don't know how to play it properly. I have seen people kill him, and that's a really interesting objective too, and stuff like that. It's like Blood Runs Red. It's like Blood Runs Red. Is it better than Blood Runs Red? I would say so, just because you get more of an objective, because this is like better on a gameplay point, whereas Blood Runs Red is better for story purposes, because you see how scary the Black Knight is, which is always good to set up. But yeah, no, it's when Birthright is pretty boring when it's just rout the enemy or kill the boss. It's just not fun at that point. But it is the simpler way to handle this, and so I don't agree with how Nintendo's like, oh, we'll just make simple map objectives to go through the easier game, when you can do complex objectives and still keep it relatively easy. Which they've done, and it worked, so I don't know why they didn't do more of it. Wow, it's been 20 minutes.
One of my favorite features is the relationship system. Like in previous Fire Emblems, pairing up allies during combat grants temporary buffs and leads to some engaging story vignettes off the battlefield. I always enjoyed conversations with the grumpy ninja Saizo.
It seemed completely pointless, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Or my devout butler, Jacob.
One thing I will say is that a lot of the characters are less interesting in Birthright because a whole lot of them, the reason they're retainers is because, oh yeah, my parents did this, so now I gotta do it too. It gets so obnoxious with Hana. And where she's like, you disgraced my father's honor. It's like, what are you on about? And it's just, a lot of them are like that. Setsuno's only in this position because her family has a lineage. The only time where it's interesting is Kagero, and I'm not saying that just because she's hot. But just the whole support with Korn is like one of the better ones in Birthright, because why are you doing this? Oh, my brother was supposed to do this, but he's actually a cripple, and so I had to take his spot for him since they mentioned where it's like his legs he's frail, and so his legs wouldn't be able to handle it or something like that. I don't know if he's specifically crippled, but it's something like that. Like her brother couldn't do the job, so she had to do it, and it's like that's more interesting motivation, but they never go into detail with it, and it's kind of sad. And like I guess in Saizo it's more interesting too, because it's like he is devoted to his lineage, and they go into that character, which is interesting. So it makes him one of the more likable characters in the game. But and then there's Zaboro, which everyone loves Zaboro, but everyone else, like Hinata's just a dude, bro. Setsuna's dumb as a brick. Azama's a troll. It's just boring as shit.
Each character feels like a real person with unique personality quirks and a distinctive look.
Sometimes yes, half times no, like the ones I said, like Setsuna and Azama.
Modification is another strong point. You can level up a unit's base class to gain extra perks and abilities, or use a special seal to change their job to something more preferable. It's a feature worth experimenting with.
Yeah.
I used a heart seal to change an underpowered spear wielder into a fearless sniper that obliterated enemies in one shot.
This is another case of IGN just not knowing when to sync up shit properly. Also, when I heard this at first, I thought it was like, you did not change a Boro into a sniper. It's like, no, like, Mozu into Archer is such a good decision because she becomes broken as shit. But it's like, yeah, I turned Mozu into an Archer and she kills things in one shot. Shows something not killing thing in one shot. Which, I know I do that sometimes in my top 10s, but that's because I would spend like 15 minutes scouring multiple videos looking for a clip like that, and it just doesn't exist in decent quality, so I'm like, fuck it, just put the next closest thing. But you can easily get footage of Mozu fucking shit up in one hit.
It's a fun and rewarding way to build an army.
Haha, duel.
Fire Emblem Fates offers a base building mode, and for the most part, it's pretty decent.
It's fine.
Constructing useful architecture like shops and buffer stations that double as defense against invading online players is fun, and being able to visit other castles and collect valuable resources, or use Street Pass to summon someone else's troops into battle is a nice incentive to hop online.
What?
One
one thing I will say is the My Castle looked cool at first, but it's kind of lame and generic. It's just, you get your shops to get your items, everything else just doesn't really matter that much. The mess hall was a nice addition. I did like using it on the later parts of my original Conquest run, but in subsequent playthroughs I was just like, eh. It's helpful, but you could just use tonics to get the same effect. It is nice. I do like the mess hall though, but stuff in general, like the hot springs, is just, it's fan service, which, sure, you gotta put it in there. You waste the resources to use it if you want to, but you don't get much out of it aside from ugly looking models sometimes in bikinis. And then there's, no, not even bikinis, they're in their underwear, which is weirder because it's a hot spring, but the My Castle features were kind of underwhelming. Forging was dumb as shit, how they handled it. And then other My Castles weren't that interesting. I kind of liked how there was that mechanic where if you were to have someone like Kaze, for example, like they showed in the video, he would give you a discount on throwing weapons or daggers and stuff like that. And I wish it was easier to manipulate that, because I know you can by getting the items from the accessory shop, but they cost so many resources, and you'd have to go to other castles if your own castle didn't have the resources to get that item, which I didn't like that as much. It really kills a lot of the stuff, and it just makes it more RNG dependent. More player control is always better. I kind of wish they made it so you could get all the resources in your own castle, but you gotta have 4 other ones that hopefully have the different ones in each of them in order to get everything you'd want, which sucks.
Lack of versatility between fortresses.
Okay, this is where we go on the ratings, and this is going to be funny.
Fire Emblem Fates Birthright is a fantastic balance of tactical challenge and accessibility. Even after I finished the story, I returned to it again and again.
That's just blatantly false! We can tell you didn't go to it again and again, just in this review.
To unlock more conversations with friends and test my army's might against Nor's finest. I'm addicted to Fire Emblem Fates, and that's fine by me.
Okay. Alright, and that's pretty much where the video ends. So now I gotta give my thoughts on the verdict, and geez, I'm gonna try to keep this under half an hour. Let's just go over their pros and cons. Pros, fantastic combat. It is Fire Emblem combat, but it's boringly generic combat, so Rich customization, that's just blatantly false. You do not have that much customization in this game without wasting a ton of resources, and even still, you would have to use the My Castle feature to get those resources, which you don't talk about using the My Castle to get the skills specifically, so that's a moot point. Excellent story. I already tore that bitch a new one. Did I talk about the whole why the things look pretty in this one? Hopefully I did. Accessibility, I've gone on to why that's good, yes. Cons, repetitive mission objectives, that's true. Other cons, generic story, easy gameplay, as certain units can just make the game bend over backwards. I didn't mention Scarlet, did I? I love Scarlet. I didn't put her in my top 10 pre-promotes because I already had Ryoma, and he is just factually better because that 1 to 2 range is busted. But Scarlet is also a very good flyer, tanky as shit, can do a lot of damage herself very fast. So her and Ryoma just showing up just breaks this game a new one too. It breaks it 2 new ones at the same time because they join you on the same chapter. So yeah, did this sound like a 9.4 review? No, it sounded more like a kind of an 8 by like gaming standards, but she did praise a lot of things, so it makes sense why they give it a high rating. What would I give this game personally? I'd give it maybe I don't know. Because in my eyes, if I give anything a 7 out of 10 or higher, that would mean I'd say it's worth it to go through in multiple playthroughs, or you can experience it again knowing stuff, and it is a worthwhile experience for you to go through at least just once, and like less than that is kind of just, it's like the American school systems, like you get it like a 6 out of 10, you're like, ugh. Because it's like, it's passable, you can live with it. I don't know, I'm not going based off of course, the American grading system, but it's like, in my eyes, it's like, you chunk it up into thirds, so what would I even give this game? Maybe a 6 out of 10, just because I always overlook the stories in Fire Emblems because none of them are ever anything that special. But there is some fun stuff you can do in this game. I do like how you can break a lot of the units. Saizo's really strong, Obro's very powerful, the Royals, Takumi's busted as shit. Ryoma is the most broken unit in the game. Scarlet's fun to use. So there are some fun units, but the level design is so generic. It's so painfully generic. It's not to the point where it's bad and obtrusive, like Gaiden's chapters are, or Echo's is with Celica's Path, but it's just, there's so little, like, the obstacles they put are so minor that they barely pose any threat to you, and they can be easily circumvented. So, I don't know, soft 6 out of 10, don't hold me to that, but it definitely is not a 9 out of 10 game. It's just, oh boy, this game is generic, so it gets a generic score. That's how it should be, not something amazing or fantastic. And those are my thoughts on Fire Emblem Birthright and on IGN's take on it. This is a half-hour video because holy fuck, I can go on for a while. And I even made this one longer because I went more in depth in some things. So yeah, comments, if you watch this whole thing, type who is your favorite Birthright character, because I do read the comments, unfortunately. I haven't learned yet, I've not learned from my mistakes. And yeah, talk about, don't give me like an essay because I'm not going to read that. If you put like more than 4 lines saying what you like about each thing, I'm not going to read it because no one's interested in reading a full essay in a YouTube comments. No one likes comment essays, okay? No one does. So, I don't know, tell me like a little snippet and I'll like look at it more. Maybe I can talk about them the next time I do this, if I do this again. If people care enough for me to people care enough to hear my ramblings. Alright? Leave you to that chat. Comments. I'm not doing a live stream. I was watching one last night, which is why I'm still in the mindset. Thank you all again. I am out of here. Bye!
Keep it here on IGN.